Hello, I'm Toycat, and today I'm in a world that you might just recognise, and the reason that I'm here today is because I wanted to talk about the brand new 1.10.0 update, which is now officially available for all Minecraft Bedrock platforms. It just came out for the Switch about half an hour ago, and it should be out for every other single platform in the last 6 or 12 hours, depending on which platform and where you live. But basically, Minecraft Bedrock has a brand new update, the headline featuring which is brand new shields. So there are now brand new shields added to Minecraft, and they're not the same shields that have come out for Java, and that did come out for Java literally 5 years ago. They're very different in the way they control and the way they act, and I think it's super interesting, in some ways better, in some ways worse, but I think the biggest thing is that the implementation is something I really like and think is quite positive, and let me explain why, as well as all of the other features in this update in today's video, which I hope you all do enjoy. Like this one if you do like it, but let's dive straight into the features of the 1.10.0 update. So yeah, it's worth mentioning that this update has kind of two sets of features. We'll be focusing on the ones that aren't locked behind experimental gameplay, because they're the ones most people care about, but we'll talk about the other stuff later. For now though, let's start by talking about the fact that crossbows are now officially part of the game. Again, previously you could use these with experimental gameplay, and they were pretty much the only feature locked behind that wall, but now they exist in the main game. They have free enchantments, and yeah, now you can access the crossbow no matter what. It's pretty cool because, I mean, it's one-handed, and you can also use it with a shield if you want to, which we'll dive into later. But yeah, crossbows are a brand new weapon, and it's kind of fun that they've been added. This update almost feels like the combat update just because of these two features coming together, right? Like, I don't know, like they seem to perfectly suit each other, and I kind of like that they came out together. So we got the crossbow as well as the shield, but then we've also got a secondary feature here. If we go to the crafting table, one of the brand new crafting features from Minecraft 1.14 or 1.11, one of the brand new things you're going to be able to do is now in this update as well. So the loom is crafted with 2 planks and 2 string, just like this, and if you have a loom, it's basically a brand new crafting table which exclusively does banners. So if you want to do banners, it's now a lot easier if you don't remember all the patterns, like how do you do this, how do you do that. All you need to do is give it the die and it will work out the pattern for you, put it on your banner. It's a lot easier. The one downside to the loom being in the game, because otherwise it's really handy to just make things and be more creative with, is you now can't craft the old way. If you want to make banners the old way, like we've done before, put our little banner in there and then work on things, you now have to use the loom, which means it adds an extra step, which some people are obviously not going to be quite so down with. However, to kind of make up for that fact, I mean, I think this does personally, there is a brand new achievement which you can only get, and it's a pretty absurd achievement actually. We're gonna have to scroll all the way down here because, I mean, like, of course we will. But there is a brand new achievement in this update, and I guess it's the opposite way around, but there's a brand new achievement in this update, and it is to do with the loom, because you need to craft one of the brand new things. In fact, the hardest of the brand new things, you need to... As it turns out, the achievement is not here on the Nintendo Switch, which is the platform I'm using to play for today's video. So yeah, if you want to get the achievement on every other platform, for 20 gamer score, you can make a banner using the enchanted golden apple, and you'll get 20 gamer score. I think that's a really fun kind of trade-off, because it's a really expensive banner to make, the Mojang logo one, and now you get rewarded if you decide to make one with the... Again, I think it's almost not worth it, but if you have some lying around, if you really want to show off your wealth and get a Minecraft achievement for it, then boom, you can now do that in this update, except on Switch where it's not showing yet, although that usually updates a little bit later. So with that said, let's dive into the next features, because it's not just looms in this update. We've also got another one of the brand new 1.14 villager blocks, and that is the Lectern. So the Lectern, in case you are curious, is found just over here. It's crafted from 4 slabs and 1 bookshelf, added kind of together like this. And yeah, the Lectern is a really interesting block, because I think 99% of where you're going to use it is purely aesthetic. So let me place one down and just show you that, like, okay, this is the Lectern. It's a really nice looking block. It was one of those long lost features that was going to be added to the game, and then it was decided not to, and now it's back in the game. I think it looks kind of great, but the interesting thing is it really doesn't have much for great use, because you can place books on it and it looks really good, but then it allows you and other people to read books at the same time. But how often do you really want to do that? Like, how often are you reading books as a group and you're willing to craft something which requires slabs and a bookshelf? Like, not easy things to come by. It's not a necessarily greatly useful block, and it's even less useful because of the fact that one of the key features behind the Lectern, its redstone feature, isn't coming in this update. That's coming in 1.11. So yeah, in case you're curious, by the way, just in case you don't know, redstone comparators are a way to measure different items and output different values depending on different things. So for instance, the more items we put in this chest, if we put a stack of arrows in there, it will actually increase the redstone signal such that it opens the door. Basically, the redstone this measures how many items are in the chest, and when there are enough items in the chest, the door can open. You can't do that by putting books in a Lectern, because as you can see, there's just no signal activated whatsoever. Right now, it's not a redstone item, and given that's most of the use for a lot of people, it's kind of disappointing. It's kind of missing a lot of its use. However, it does exist as a pretty block, and you can read books together if that's a thing you want to do, which I honestly think is mostly useful for map makers, and I guess map making is quite big in Minecraft Bedrock because of the store, of course, so maybe that's a really big deal in that regard. So let's move on though to the next item you can also craft, and this one's also ridiculous in terms of like how this one got past, how did this get past all the forms of bug fixing and cert, etc. But basically, if we go back to a crafting table, which we're going to do right now, you'll see how there's a brand new item crafted from 8 iron nuggets and also a torch. So here you can see it's a really cool brand new block. I really think it's great. I think it's really well balanced. I think it's a really fun new block. I think it's adding more ways to light things up. But wait a minute, what is it called? The sea lantern? No, it's not called the sea lantern. It's somehow got mistakenly labeled the sea lantern. Again, it's very much not for the sea. Like this, it's not really recommended for the sea, and in fact, you can't even place it in the ocean if you want to. But yeah, it's a really cool brand new block that you can place underneath blocks. You can place it on top of them, and you kind of get 2 different lanterns from it. I think these are great. Again, long lost Minecraft feature came back to this update, and I really, really like that they're in here. Again, it's just a torch, but a much better looking torch in my opinion. Really great feature. Somehow accidentally got named the wrong thing though. No idea how that even happens, but apparently it did. So with that said, we're going to move on to the next feature here. By the way, in case you're curious, I can't turn off notifications on Switch. You just have to look at them, and that's why I tend not to record it. But let's next of all talk about the next feature in this update, which is one that's really, really big. Because they've now added bark blocks to the game. So bark blocks are something which were added in the update Aquatic for Minecraft Java, but just never made their way to Minecraft Bedrock. But now, here they are, and they don't just exist. Get this, it's even better because you can strip them. I do love me a good stripped bark block. That's the stuff right there. But no, yeah, you can strip bark blocks. That's kind of great. I mean, having bark blocks in general is the better thing. But yeah, we have 12 brand new blocks, and for some reason though, they're not called what they are. They're called just wood. So if we mine this block, for instance, you'll see how this is just called jungle wood. It's not jungle bark for some reason. I don't know what the logic is. Again, naming in Bedrock sometimes goes a bit weird. Like, there's like cooked beef still, for instance, rather than steak. There's sea lanterns rather than lanterns. And then also, you can see how we've got, just wood blocks and stripped wood. Exactly the reasons behind that, I don't know for sure. Maybe they just have only so many names they want to use on different blocks. But there are 12 brand new blocks, and they're ones that I think Bedrock players are especially looking forward to. But they're not especially new, right? I mean, in some senses of the word. Then next up, we've got a feature which is only available for creative because it only works with a spawn egg. Pillagers now exist in this update, but again, only in creative, so keep that in mind. If you're going to be doing stuff with this. Also, we're going to have to like shield our way out of this guy. But yeah, basically now you can see, as you can see, pillagers now exist, but they only exist in creative, which is a bit weird. Like this update kind of has 3 sections. There's a survival section, a creative section, then an experimental gameplay. And one of the features that's only in creative is the pillager, which again, you can't find it naturally in the wild. There's no place for it to spawn naturally in the wild. But I mean, it's a thing, I guess. Anyway, with that said, I think we've gone through, all of the other features that are, pretty major, besides the textures, which I think we should focus at least a little bit on and say there is a texture update in this update. You can't switch away from it because if we go to the settings and go to global resources, again, it's just the classic Minecraft resources are now this. I wouldn't say this is classic. This is very much new. And if you want to find the old one, I mean, you can find in here like, oh, this is the new one, but even more new, but also it's the same one. And yeah, you get the old textures as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm just missing something. You can't switch back to them even if you want to. So again, these are now the default textures, and I think that's a bit weird because they're not entirely complete. In 1.11 they will be complete, but right now they're kind of experimental, I would go as far as to say. Like it's kind of like a weird thing it's going to be changing significantly next update. So if you really like a texture, maybe don't get too attached to it. But yeah, let's move on to the final feature, that's actually available for everyone, and that is shields, because this update is mostly, referred to as the shield update, right? Like, you can shield yourself from anything, including the criticism that, I don't know, this video doesn't talk about shields enough. But yeah, you can, that's a thing that you can now do in this update. You now have shields, but they work entirely differently. You might have noticed how it was a bit clunky the way I was dealing with that pillager just a few seconds ago. But yeah, shields have now been added to Minecraft Bedrock, and they're pretty similar to their Java counterparts, but they have a couple of key differences. So the first one, this is one I want to really correct because I assumed it would be the case, but apparently not. So yeah, if we craft ourselves a shield in here somewhere, we need to actually go to the crafting table. But if we craft ourselves a shield, which in case you're curious is crafted just like this It's 6 bits of wood and a bit of iron. It's really easy stuff, but you can't actually combine your shields with a banner just yet. That's a future feature. It's not in this update. So if you want to take, like let's say a British flag banner, which of course you do, if you want to take one of these banners and you want to put them on your shield, because again, of course you want to do that, then you can't do that in this update. Shields are not compatible with banners, and given this is a lot of why people want them in the game, it's kind of sad not to see it. Like, this crafting recipe just doesn't work. But what you can do with shields in this update is you can use them as a combat feature. I mean, arguably their main purpose, right? But yeah, you can now use shields as a combat feature, but they don't work by, holding the left trigger or right trigger or left click or whatever else right click or left trigger. It doesn't work like that. Instead, it works by crouching. So the reason behind this is because Minecraft Bedrock is on all platforms, touch devices, mouse controls, keyboard. This is the only system that works for all of those devices simultaneously. So yeah, you crouch, you activate the shield, which is, at first it seems worse than Java, because on Java, you can just obviously activate your shield, and that's how it's always been. But honestly, the more I've been playing around with it, the more it's grown on me. So let me show you why I think the shield is quirky and good. Besides the banner thing, which is just a pure downgrade, again, for now, it will come later. Let me talk about why I really like how shields work on Bedrock. So first of all, they've got the same usual stuff, like, okay, if you are crouched, then you've got 180 degrees of protection basically. Anything that counts as in front of you will block enemies and block 100% of their damage, which is great. I mean, it means you can do stuff like this even. It doesn't necessarily add up too much, but again, I like it, it's good. It works with ranged attacks as well, which you've seen earlier. It's a really nice new feature that you can activate all the time while doing other things with your left hand, so you can actually attack at the same time this happens. So I think that's a big benefit by itself. Like, if you are crouching, you can do anything else at the same time. You can fire your bow. You can't draw it back because it takes 2 hands, but you can fire your bow at the same time that you're being hit, that you're using the shield basically. You can hit things, you can fire firework rockets off, you can place lanterns, so you could, if you're going through somewhere, you don't want to kill the mobs, you can let them attack, hit you, but you can also do other things, which I think is kind of great, kind of wonderful. And yeah, I really like the crouching system because you can do other things, but then it also works in a bunch of quirky different ways, which I think are, again, just pure upgrades. So the first one here, I had a horse around here earlier, for the pure purpose of this, but I've lost him now. So as soon as I find a horse, I can show you how, for some reason, while you're on a horse, you count as crouched all the time. Like, you can see I'm very much not crouched, but your shield is up all the time, which means that if, say, a husk wants to come and get you, then he can't. As long as you're in that 180-degree radius again, you can literally even basically walk into them. As long as they don't get out of that 180-degree radius in front of you, you can knock them back while you're on a horse, which means you can deal with bigger threats, like, say, in the distance, like, okay, what am I trying to shoot right now? Maybe some of those hearts. You can do that if you want to. And yeah, I think that's wonderful. You can also look in the sky if you really want to, which is a little bit absurd. But yeah, basically you can do a lot of other stuff while you block things off with the shield, which, okay, until it breaks. Because, I mean, I've been taking a lot of damage. But yeah, that's a really fun thing by itself. But then on top of the fact that it works on a horse, it also works in another way that you might not necessarily expect. Because if you're flying, either by creative or because you have one of these things, you can just crouch. And again, we're going to have to put a shield up, aren't we? But you can crouch while you're flying, and you can activate your shield or not in midair. And again, I think this is a fun little quirkiness, because you can use fireworks at the same time. You can do other things at the same time, including flying and including other things at the same time as flying and using your shield. It's super fun, it's super great, and it's a really good implementation of the shields, in my opinion. I think the fact that this update has 2 features, it has the shield and the crossbow, both related to combat, that you can use together is really fun. I think the fact that sea lanterns are in here and implemented arguably just wrong is kind of interesting to compare and contrast in there. So yeah, just interesting stuff in this update. There is sea lanterns, there are shields, and there are crossbows. And we could just kind of end things there, call that the day. But I want to talk about the rest of this, so let's dive into those features. So I also want to mention that there is something called experimental gameplay, which most Minecrafters statistically don't use, but just in case you want to know about it, there is a toggle which you can turn on, which will allow you to access some features also in this update, but also not available for most people. So if you turn on that feature, it will make a copy of your world, and in that copy, in either new chunks, or if it's a brand new world, just in the chunks altogether, you'll be able to find brand new structures, such as the new villages. Every village type is being updated in the Village and Pillage update, and you can experience them early with this experimental gameplay turned on. on. Why does that need to be the case? I mean, it's mostly because like, well, this is an experiment, right? But yeah, also within this same feature, there is also bamboo jungles. So both those features you can only find if you have experimental gameplay turned on. They're going to be coming in 1.11, which isn't going to be too far off, we don't imagine. But if you want to experience them a little bit early, if you want to experiment with them, you can do so with this update. Also, the brand new villagers exist in this, so as well as villagers, you know, the big things we're seeing like this, like look at all these blacksmiths. There's 3 of them in a row. I don't know if that's rare or not in this update, but it seems pretty crazy, right? But yeah, as well as having all of these brand new villagers, you also have brand new villagers, which look like this. They all have different designs. I think it's kind of fun, the different designs, and there's this guy who I used to think had like a fez on his hat, but apparently it's a book. I mean, I was mind blown by that. Maybe you all saw that before, but like, look, it's a book. It's not a fez or a weird, crazy Turkish hat at all. It's actually a book on his hat. But yeah, all of these brand new features, including the brand new villager blocks, exist in this update behind experimental gameplay. Also, sweet berries exist in exactly the same way. Also, pillager outposts exist in exactly the same way. Also, the Minecraft scripting engine exists in exactly the same way. There's a lot of things that you can do in this update behind experimental gameplay, and the reasons behind that are a little bit confusing to me, because experimental gameplay to me makes sense as like, oh yeah, these features are unstable, don't try them out unless you're really sure you want to take a risk. But like, there's a lot of features in this update that are like, so these are clearly experimental. Like, the new textures are literally better in future betas than they are right here. This isn't the final version, this is an experimental version of it, and yet it's turned on by default, and there's no real easy way out of it, on Switch or Xbox at least. And it's like, okay, so why is that not experimental? Like, pillagers, they didn't add them to the game in any way besides creative spawn eggs. Why does that not count as experimental? When something like villager textures, which are entirely finished as far as we can tell, they don't exist. I don't know what the logic is. If you do know, let me know in the comments down below. But I do want to also just mention, while we're here anyway, right, I want to talk at least a little bit about obviously this update. And a lot of people are going to ask, like, okay, so now it's out for Xbox, it's out for Switch, what about the PlayStation 4? And obviously the PlayStation 4, being console edition, is in kind of a separate category, but let's try and talk about it a bit anyway, because generally speaking, PlayStation 4 edition updates come out a couple of weeks after the Bedrock version finally releases, and we don't know for sure if they're going to do a 1.10 update or if they'll just wait till 1.11. So these features will come to PS4, either via the Bedrock coming there, or more likely, because 4J Studios will update the PS4 version. It's just they might wait until 1.11 comes out, because there was an unrelated PS4 and PS3, also 360 update that came out earlier today. Again, it's just a splash text. We don't know which splash text they changed. It was very mysterious. But this, yeah, an update came out a few days ago. It's worth mentioning. Oh, sorry, an update came out today, same day as 1.10, but it's not 1.10. 1.10 is going to be either a couple of weeks, or it's going to have to wait until 1.11 comes out for Java. Sorry, 1.14 for Java, 1.11 for Bedrock, and I guess like TU83 or whatever for PS4. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Now you know. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Like if you liked it, share if you like it, and just subscribe if you're new around here, because I make videos like this one every single day on my channel, and if you subscribe, you'll see them daily on your homepage. I played on Switch, and apparently that led to a lot of weird recording issues, so if something went really strange in the background, my sincerest apologies about that. But the key thing here is download the update, it's kind of fun. Okay, goodbye now.